Thank you, Chair Hansen. Would you like to move your bill?
Yes, Madam Chair, I would move that House File 151 be recommended to be re-referred to the Ways and Means Committee.
Okay, Chair Hansen has moved that House File 151 be recommended to be re-referred to the Ways and Means Committee. Representative Hansen, to-year bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, this bill is the 2021 LCCMR recommendations, the Legislative and Citizens Commission on Minnesota Resources, and it includes 88 projects totaling $70.88 million in FY22 from the Environment and Natural Resources Trust Fund. I have the Executive Director, Ms. Becca Nash, here to do a walk through the bill and answer any questions. Ms. Nash.
Ms. Nash, if you would identify yourself for the record, and then you can walk us through the bill.
Madam Chair, members, good afternoon. I'm Becca Nash, and I'm the Director of the LCCMR, the Legislative Citizen Commission on Minnesota Resources. Thanks for the opportunity to be here today. The Environment and Natural Resources Trust Fund is a permanent fund in the state treasury that was created through constitutional amendment to support activities that protect, conserve, preserve, and enhance Minnesota's air, water, land, fish, wildlife, and other natural resources. It's funded with 40% of the annual proceeds from the Minnesota State Lottery, as well as income generated from investments managed by the State Board of Investment. LCCMR is responsible for making recommendations to the legislature on how ENRTF dollars are spent, and then for conducting oversight of those approved projects and their associated expenditures. The LCCMR is made up of 17 members, 5 senators, 5 representatives, and 7 citizens, and it's supported by nonpartisan staff, including Michael Varian, Corey Layfield, Roy Anderson, Diana Griffith, and me. The amount that is available for annual spending per the Constitution is up to 5.5% of the value of the fund on June 30th of the even year before the start of the biennium. So the amount that's available for fiscal year 22 and 23 is $70,881,000. The projects that are before you today are the result of a multi-stage competitive process. In response to our 2021 RFP, we received 329 proposals, requesting approximately $240,000. From that, 101 proposals were invited to present to the commission. We had 5 days of proposals, and from that group, 88 projects were recommended and included in the bill you see today. So we've included in your packet some pie charts that show the breakdown of the recommended projects based on the priority area, the proposer affiliation, and the geographic area of interest, of impact. We had 7 priority areas for funding this year, and each of them have their own subdivisions, so I'll go through those fairly briefly. Again, as Representative Hansen said, there are 88 projects totaling $70,881,000. In subdivision 3, that is the foundational natural resource data and information priority area, and that is $10,459,000. There are about 14 projects in that category. Subdivision 4 is water resources, and that's comprised of $4,771,000 for 10 projects. Subdivision 5 includes environmental education projects, totaling $2,687,000. Subdivision 6 is aquatic and terrestrial invasive species, $6,148,000 for 7 projects. Subdivision 7 is air quality, climate change, and renewable energy. This is $6,205,000 for 6 projects. Subdivision 8 is methods to protect or restore land, water, and habitat. This is $6,429,000 for 18 projects. Subdivision 9 is land acquisition, habitat, and recreation. This is $32,062,000 for 22 projects. And then subdivision 10 is administrative and emerging issues. This is $2,120,000 for recommendations. Subdivisions 11 through 17 are conditions of funding that typically get included every year. One of those that's notable, I guess, for the conversation today is the requirement that any restoration or enhancement projects take into consideration contracting with the Minnesota Conservation Corps to do their work. Subdivision 18 is a carry forward section, and this is providing COVID-related extensions for any projects that otherwise would be expiring in June 2021. And this sets out the steps that need to be taken in order for that extension to be put in effect. And this is very similar to the COVID extensions that we passed last legislative session for projects expiring in 2020. I think that covers it for me, and I'm happy to stand for questions.
Members, do we have questions? I see one so far. Representative Green, do you want to go ahead?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, to the testifier, I do have a few of this, and I could go through the whole bill. I have questions on all the bill, but I don't think we have that kind of time. But I would like to touch on a couple of things just out of my curiosity. On page 15.1, and I'm going to try to not look at my computer because it's too hard to page down through, so I'm going to go off my notes. So if I mess up, you have to bear with me. The air quality and on 15.1, is there any advancement in this area now, or are you starting from scratch?
Ms. Nash?
Madam Chair, Representative Green, are you referring to the whole category of air quality, or is there a specific project you're referring to?
Representative Green?
Well, we can go with this, excuse me, Madam Chair, if we can go with this specific project there, and I'll just go right down the list. But you're looking at for money for Duluth, and it's a heat exchanger for the buildings and the foundation that's to improve efficiency. Do you have that kind of a heat exchanger is what I'm asking basically. Do you have the heat exchanger there, or are you starting new? Because it looks like you're starting something here off of maybe a theory or a plan.
Ms. Nash?
Madam Chair, Representative Green, my understanding is that this is optimizing an existing technology and it is making it more cost effective for implementation in residential structures.
Representative Green?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, that's my question then. Do you have a plan? Is there something in place right now that you know where you're going, or are you just starting from scratch on this?
Ms. Nash?
Madam Chair, Representative Green, I believe they are starting with an existing technology and they have steps that they want to test in order to improve and optimize it. And again, to bring the cost down so that it can be more people can be using it. It can be more accessible to more people.
Representative Green?
And thank you, Madam Chair. And I know sometimes I sound like I'm trying to be accusing. I'm not. I'm really interested in this. I'd like to know what that is that they have there on that heat exchanger. That would be, if for any way you could maybe email, whether everybody or just me, some of the information on that. I think that would be great. But just dropping right down then to 15.7 on the renewable energy flow battery for use in the grids. Kind of the same question. Do you have that battery now? Is it working? Are you trying to improve it? Or are you looking at something new there?
Ms. Nash?
Madam Chair and members, the storing renewable energy and flow battery for grid reuse project, this would be actually the first of its kind demonstration in Minnesota. I think there's some technology that's available and tested throughout the country. And one of the questions is always, how do these batteries operate in cold climates? So this would be the first of its kind demonstration in Minnesota. It's using flow batteries, which are less expensive materials than lithium ion. They need less energy for cooling. They perform better at lower temperatures and can cycle continuously. So this is testing some technology that's out there, but putting it into a Minnesota situation and testing to see how it works.
Well,
Representative Green?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll just double up a question there on that one. Then on a lot of things that we put in now, especially with the renewables coming up, no one really has thought ahead as to what happens when we have to dispose of some of the equipment, whether it be the wind turbines or the batteries. Now, these flow batteries, do you have any idea of the half-life of these batteries? And also, do you have a plan in place for disposal of them when they're done?
Ms. Nash?
Madam Chair, Representative Green, I would have to look into that. I do not have that off the top of my head.
Because, well, there again, too, if you do find that, excuse me, Madam Chair, I'll wait for you.
Representative Green, sorry, I had to cough.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, I'm trying to hurry. I've only got a couple more questions here. But yeah, I'd love that information too.
Sure.
The other thing too, just go right down to 1527. You're looking at ways to stop, I guess, bald eagles from running into wind turbines. Is there anything out there that's proven, or is this something else that you're just going to start looking into?
Ms. Nash?
Madam Chair and members, I think typically, and this is a research project, and we do an additional step with any proposed research projects as we send it out for external peer review. So we're seeking any experts in the field, and it's usually outside of Minnesota so that we're not creating any conflicts of interest with people applying for the same funds. But we do send it out for peer review. And one of the goals of research is, at times you're testing theories that are already in place to make sure that they are valid. But for the most part, the goal is to create new knowledge and understanding. And it wouldn't be a good use of the researchers' time or clearly for our funding to just repeat and discover, conclude things that we already know. So the idea here is to gather new money and build off of any research that's already been done.
Representative Green?
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's good to know. That would have been one of my final questions. You just answered that as far as duplication goes, because even on the money here for pollinators, and we all love pollinators, but I still haven't gotten an answer as to how much money we're spending on them, because it seems like we have money in almost every single area that we're putting into them, and I always worry that those are overlapping. On page 16.3, we're looking at so the reuse and repurpose of household goods, recycling basically. And in this area, I'm wondering, have you done a cost benefit on these projects, or are you just recycling to recycle?
Ms. Nash?
Madam Chair and Representative Green, this is actually the second phase of this project. And in the first phase, we did actually provide funding for the Better Futures Minnesota group to team up with the NRRI out of Duluth to do some analysis to find out exactly how much, metric tons of greenhouse gas are we reducing, and how many tons of household material that's going, are we diverting from the landfills? So there are actually some numbers to back this up. And for this particular project, they believe that this will avert the emission of at least 11 million metric tons of greenhouse gases and divert approximately 15,000 tons of unused household goods and building materials from going into the landfill.
Representative Green?
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for that. On that same vein then, further down and on page 16, you talk about creating jobs, and do you have an estimate on how many jobs that what you're doing is going to create, and will they be self-sufficient and eventually there's not any more public funds needed for them, and that the program itself will actually carry itself?
Ms. Nash?
Madam Chair, Representative Green, that's a great question, and I'm just trying to look up. We do have an estimate of how many jobs. This job in specifically would fund 13. This project would fund 13 jobs, but this organization is really pretty innovative, and they're doing a lot of different sort of experimenting and testing to figure out how they can make sure that those jobs are, living wages, and also that they are supporting a bunch of small businesses around the state to take advantage of these diverted materials and develop their own markets for them. And so the idea is that eventually this would be self-sustaining. And this is one of those instances where the Environment and Natural Resources Trust Fund is almost serving as some venture capital to give them some funds to figure these things out, work it out, and then hopefully it will be spun off and self-sufficient.
Representative Green.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I see that there's other questions, so I got two more short ones, and then I'll go off here until we see how much time we have left. But down on page 18, there you mentioned a cactus, and it looks like we're spending some money on a cactus that's only supposed to grow in certain places. And I'm wondering, can you tell me a little bit about that, and what's the benefit of this cactus that we're going to spend this kind of money on it?
Ms. Nash.
Madam Chair, Representative Green, that's a really good question. And I think, there's probably, this cactus probably serves a specific role in the ecosystem. But I think there's also just that sense of, wow, this is something that was here in a more plentiful way, and it has been dying back. And there's an interest in protecting and preserving what we once had. And so this is a cactus that has only one known remaining population in the state of Minnesota. It's on the Big Stone National Wildlife Refuge, and then it's on 2 private properties. And so the idea is to move some of the cactus, and bring it actually into the Arboretum and figure out how to propagate it, and certainly store that genetic material, and then also hopefully transplant it and get it growing again in these adjacent protected areas, including the Big Stone National Wildlife Refuge, and then perhaps also the Plover Prairie Preserve that's owned by the Nature Conservancy.
Representative Green.
Thank you. And I have one more question, and this one kind of hits close to home to me, and it's down on the bottom of page 18, where it talks about greening or green schoolyards. I'd like to know a little bit about that. And if you don't have all that information today, that's fine. But I would like to know that because one of the things I worry about with my own grandchildren and also my kids had a lot of allergies, and some were very severe. Some of my grandkids have to carry the pens around with them in case they get into trouble. And I would really like to know what the plans are for the greening of these schoolyards, because it seems like it might be a little risky for a lot of different kids, because I know that my family is not an island here in this area. It seems like allergies are becoming more and more prevalent. And if you have any information on that either today or that you could get me.
Ms. Nash.
Sure, Madam Chair, members. I think the idea of this project is that there's a lot of playgrounds across the state that are probably consist primarily of turf grass and, maybe some, shredded tires and some jungle gyms. And there's a lot of potential in there to do some more, stormwater friendly, some plantings that not only do better for our earth, but also provide some more exposure for the kids who are out there, recreating, to have some exposure with nature. So this is something that the project managers would be working with some healthcare organizations as well as schools. They've got some great partnerships set up, and they would be, it would be a locally driven effort where there's a sort of a whole design process where the kids and the schools are involved. And then in addition to that, Representative Green, I'd be happy to send you some follow-up information after the meeting.
Representative Green, any last?
Just one last comment. I hope that you're really careful on this. Even, we talked about pollinators a little bit too. Anything that you do in the way of this screening stuff that brings even pollinators into schoolyards could be very, very dangerous. And so I hope that you keep your eyes open on that. Probably not going to vote for this bill today. There's always things in these bills that, including the land acquisition, that kind of bothers me, and some of the things I don't think are really well thought out before they're stuck in. But I appreciate your answers, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
All right, next up I see Representative Ecklund and then Representative Fischer. Representative Ecklund, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just a sort of a more general question for Ms. Nash. It seemed like she said that there were 88 projects in this bill. Is that correct?
Ms. Nash?
Madam Chair, yes, there are.
Okay, and how many applications were there for projects?
Ms. Nash?
Madam Chair and Representative Akland, we received 329 applications this year.
Okay, so that brings me to my question, which is if an organization or an entity applies for money from this organization, then, and they're not selected, the next year, do they start over, or is there some sort of lottery system, and do they move up on the list, or how does that work? Because with so many people asking and only maybe a third of them actually receiving the money, I was just wondering, curious how that works, if they have any hope of ever moving to the top in their request.
Ms. Nash?
Madam Chair and Representative Ecklund, it's a good question. Yeah, I think, if you apply and you aren't selected the first go round, we as staff encourage people to try again. It depends on what other projects are submitting applications for. And sometimes it's a project that members need to learn a little bit more about before they're ready to commit, or, maybe you try a couple times and you don't ever, or 3 times, you don't ever get a recommendation. So it is each year kind of starting fresh. Each proposal competes against all the other proposals.
Representative Akland?
Thank you, Ms. Nash, and that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, next up I see Representative Fischer and then Representative Ecklund. Representative Fischer, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Ms. Nash, thank you for the presentation today and for all the work that the folks have done putting together the recommendations. The area I have questions on is I was noticing on page 4, line 10, the geographic atlases for water resource management. I was noticing that this is an appropriation for funding the Part A part. Is this something that is going to complete all of the Part A's throughout the entire state of Minnesota, or is this just part of some of the processes there?
Ms. Nash?
Madam Chair and Representative Fischer, so the Geologic Atlas for Water Resources, this is Part A to the University of Minnesota. This is the first step in the 2-step process of creating the Geologic Atlases. This appropriation would complete about 8 atlases, and they do combine, they get funding from us as well as Clean Water Fund. So it's those 2 sources of funding working together. And they're getting towards the end. They have 66 of the 87 counties completed. If they get, about $2 million a year from all the sources, they will be able to start the 87th county in 2025 and finish it in 2029. So the end is in sight there.
Representative Fischer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Nash. That's exactly the information I was looking for, is where we are. I know that when this was started years ago, it seemed like it was going to be decades. And thanks to the funding that is coming from the LCCMR, we've been able to move that up. And this is very important for us to better understand the hydrology of water across our state, because it reacts differently in different parts of the state. And this will help guide the science of how we better manage our water for protection down the road. So I want to say thank you for that continued commitment from the LCCMR. It's still going to take a while to finish that very last one, but I'm glad to see that we're on program, that we can see it happen before the decade is over. So thank you so much.
Representative Ecklund, you're next.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Ms. Nash, as always, thanks for the run through on the bill. I just want a couple comments, Representative Akland. That was a tremendous question that you had about whether there's priorities or not. I think what happens, as somebody that sat on this committee for a few years now, is that when people come up with a project proposal after a round or two of watching other proposals, they figure out what they have to do to make their proposal strong enough to get noticed, if you want to say. And then the other thing is, once you see it once, you're more apt to remember it the next time around, the next year that Ms. Nash and her staff sends out the 4 binders or 3 binders of books that we have with projects that are coming. So, and I just want to remind members also, this is a non-general fund appropriation. It's from proceeds from the trust fund, and it does a lot of good throughout the entire state of Minnesota. There's a lot of good research. There's a lot of good projects that whether it's fixing up shorelines or whatever, there's a lot of good projects throughout the whole state that and a lot of these groups put a lot of effort into getting this project in front of us. Last year, you heard from Ms. Nash, last year we had over 300 proposals, and then we rated them all, and then I'm not sure how it got down to the 80, but every year we have a big discussion of how many of those proposals we actually want to see. So I'd urge members to vote for this bill. This is a good bill for the state of Minnesota, and I enjoy working on the committee. Thank you.
Any further questions from members?
Madam Chair.
Chair Hansen?
I think just following up, this was a unanimous recommendation from the LCCMR, and all 17 members voting for this. It's a good package. I would ask for members to support this. It is also a very varied package. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in here, and whether it's cactus or pollinators or wind turbine research, the little things matter. And our work in scientific research not only helps us, but sets the groundwork for around the country. And so there's just a range of things in here, whether it's having the solar up on platforms so that cattle could walk underneath it, see if we can do a dual role there, or having the research on COVID and wastewater to see if we can better track and find a way of impacting how the virus is spreading. So those are cutting edge research things. Minnesota has been proud on those. We now will have 2 LCCMR bills that have gone through the committee, the 2020 and the 2021. I am hopeful that we could pass those individually through the floor and over to the Senate. I would plead, if not beg, the senators to release their hold on the 2020 and the 2021 LCCMR projects so that we could take these as they are and consider them and try to do what's best for the people of Minnesota rather than leveraging them against something else. So this was a unanimous effort. I would ask for your support. The little things do matter. We are all part of this web of life, whether we think of it or not. We may not realize that we're related to the cactus somehow, but somewhere things are connected. And that interconnectedness is something that we as legislators can have an impact on by funding this research and continuing this effort and doing what's best for Minnesota. So I would ask for your support.
Representative Hansen renews his motion that House File 151 be recommended to be re-referred to Ways and Means, and the clerk will take the roll on that motion.
Hansen, Rick.
Hansen, Rick, aye.
Hansen, aye. Wozlowick, Amy.
Wozlowick, aye.
Wozlowick, aye. Heinzman, Josh.
Heinzman, aye.
Heinzman, aye. Acom, Patty.
Acom, aye.
Acom, aye. Ackland, Susan.
Ackland, aye.
Ackland, aye. Backer, Jeff.
Backer, aye.
Backer, aye. She's excused. Ecklund, Rob.
Ecklund, aye.
Ecklund, aye. Fischer, Peter.
Fischer, aye.
Fischer, aye. Green, Steve.
Green, no.
Green, no. I go, Spencer.
I go aye.
I go I. Jordan Sydney.
Jordan, I.
Jordan I. Keeler Heather.
Keeler, I.
Keeler I. Lee Fu.
Lee, aye.
Lee I. Lippert Todd.
Lippert, I.
Lippert I. Lewick Dale.
Lewick, aye.
Lewick I. Morrison Kelly.
Morrison, I.
Morrison I. Nelson Nathan.
Nelson, I.
Nelson I. Tice Tama.
Tice, I.
Tice I. That is 17 ayes and 1 no.
And with that, the motion prevails and the bill is on its way to Ways and Means.